This is going to be my video on the Orlando shooting that happened recently, and this is not a video I wanted to make. Truthfully, I think that we as a society are just tired of hearing the exact same conversations go on about gun control and radical Islam and who essentially is responsible for what happened in Orlando. I am not unbiased when it comes to these sorts of issues. I never claim to be. And I hope that my audience will understand that I have no intention whatsoever of representing anyone or any group. These are purely my views. I don't want to push my ideological agenda onto anyone. That is the least of my concerns right now. But I do also feel at the same time that discussions that may seem tiresome to have for the 9 billionth time on gun control and radical Islam, they are necessary for proper discourse. Because if we don't talk about these problems, how are we going to deal with them? Even if we don't come up with a solution, ignoring the problems, it's not going to help anyone. Was Islam a factor in Omar's decision to massacre 49 innocent people? Yes, I don't think any rational person can deny that. And despite what the mainstream media will say, this is a man that pledged allegiance to ISIS. This is a man who followed the doctrine of Islam. It may not necessarily be the same tenets that moderate Muslims follow, but this is all from the same doctrine, the Quran, right? And the thing is, I think it's incredibly disingenuous, and I think it's dishonest for anyone at this point to deny that. But can anyone in my audience honestly say they're surprised by this? The fact that a doctrine that says that it's okay to stone gay people to death, that heretics should be met with death, that somehow people who blindly follow such an ideology would end up with blood on their hands. Is anyone really surprised to hear that? And I can just hear the backlash coming from all of my religious detractors. Oh, well, truth. There are so many Muslims that live their lives in peace and can reconcile with these rather questionable and dubious parts of the Quran. And furthermore, haven't there been other religions that made equally egregious claims in their ideology? Why aren't you attacking them? And my response to these types of claims is, first of all, who said that I don't criticize other religions? I definitely have in the past. I will continue to do so in the future. And to be honest, any ideology, political, religious, or otherwise, that says that it's okay to kill people for not believing in said ideology is something I'm going to criticize extremely harshly. You can bet your ass on that. Secondly, my problem is not with the overwhelming majority of peaceful Muslims. My problem is with the doctrine of Islam. More specifically, the bigoted and violent parts of Islam that are used as justification for groups like ISIS. So no, I'm not equating all Muslims to Omar Mateen. I am, however, equating the doctrine that they both follow as exactly one and the same. Only one group cherry picks one section and the other group cherry picks the other. So, if radical Islam played a part in Omar Mateen's massacre, as it did play a part in many other massacres in recent memory, what can we really do about it? You guys aren't going to like this answer, because there's not really much we can do about it. And people are so quick to say not all Muslims, but let's just say it was almost all Muslims believe in the same things Omar Mateen does. Even then, I don't think it would be acceptable to stop people from peacefully practicing, preaching, or believing in Islam. I don't think it's acceptable to stop people from their freedom of belief and their freedom of association, because then we would become the very monsters we claim to fight against, and that's not something I am willing to entertain. The only thing we can do that wouldn't turn us into astounding hypocrites would be to criticize Islam, would be to bring it up into the public sphere and have people examine it in the open marketplace of ideas. We cannot hold all Muslims accountable for the actions of Omar Mateen, because it wasn't all Muslims that massacred 49 people and injured many others. It was one. At the same time, what we can hold all Muslims accountable for is their unquestioning and unwavering belief in a doctrine that has been used as a justification for bigotry, more specifically violence against gay people. We can absolutely hold them accountable for that. And now, everyone's favorite topic, gun control. Should we have stricter gun control laws in America? Well, considering Omar Mateen was able to get firearms legally, despite being on an FBI watch list and having been questioned, I think, by the FBI, he was still able to obtain his AK-47 legally. But here is the question I would propose, and I'm not necessarily for or against gun control, but hypothetically, if gun control worked perfectly, do you think that Omar Mateen or another radical could not just buy a gun off the black market? Like, how hard do you think this would be? Could he not just improvise another weapon, or say, get into his car and start running over people? Like, I get that gun control needs to exist. It absolutely must. But to what extent is not something I am entirely sure of, because, well, we can't ban cars just because some people run over other people in their cars. We can't ban all guns just because some people shoot other people with their guns. At the same time, that doesn't mean that I think it's okay to allow everyone access to, like, atom bombs or other weaponry that can devastate entire populations and leave the ground irradiated for years to come. That's not what I'm proposing either. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure whether gun control laws need to be more strictly or less strictly enforced in America, because, quite frankly, I think that violent people would do violent things, no matter whether or not they had a gun or a knife or a car. And yet, I don't think that less gun control is the right answer either. That just sounds like adding fuel to the fire. Oh, well, some gunmen just killed a bunch of people? Well, if everybody had firearms, there would be absolutely no problems in America, right? That doesn't seem very logical either. I guess what it boils down to is A, its potential in harming people, and B, its ease of availability. Like, an atom bomb can disrupt entire populations and generations, but I mean, how many people have access to one of those? Yet at the same time, people have access to kitchen knives and basic firearms, so, and that can still harm a lot of people. In the end, I don't really have a good answer here, because on one hand, I don't believe everyone should have access to every weapon at all times. On the other hand, I don't think we should punish responsible gun owners just because a few deranged psychopaths use guns for nefarious deeds. I think that ultimately we cannot fight back with violence if we are to be successful. Violence will be necessary for defense, for our own safety, but never at the expense of freedoms unless absolutely necessary. And that is what I would want to focus on, is that we certainly can ban guns. We certainly can ban Islam. We can use the powers of the state to do these things. But A, how effective would it be? And B, even if it were 100% effective, wouldn't that make us the very monsters we claim to fight against? Thanks for watching, and may the truth always be heard. Peace.